A group of men in suits stood behind, mocking and laughing, while hurling rude remarks at an elderly man seated in front of a shop. The man, with a sorrowful expression, clutched his grandson's toy tightly, as if it were his most precious treasure. What the men failed to realize was that the humble, old man they ridiculed was the wealthiest person in the entire city. Discover the heartfelt story of this elderly man, who never gave up searching for his grandson, missing for 2 years since Christmas Eve. It is a tale of heartbreak, sacrifice, and uncertain hope. Let's begin the story. The snow fell gently, blanketing the cobblestone streets of the bustling city square. Strings of Christmas lights shimmered above, casting a warm glow over the festive crowd. Children laughed as they built snowmen, while couples strolled hand in hand, soaking in the holiday spirit. The faint scent of roasted chestnuts mingled with the crisp winter air, creating a scene straight out of a Christmas card. Yet amidst this joyous scene stood an old man who seemed untouched by the holiday cheer. His figure was hunched, his face weathered by age and sorrow. Alexander Gray, once a name that evoked power and respect in boardrooms across the globe, now stood silently before a shop window, lost in thought. Inside the display, a small music box gleamed under the store's lights. It was simple yet elegant, a wooden box with intricate carvings of snowflakes and reindeer. As it played its soft, lilting melody of Silent Night, Alexander's mind drifted to memories of his grandson, Liam. 2 years ago, Liam had been his world, the only spark of joy in his otherwise rigid and business-oriented life. But that spark had been extinguished when Liam disappeared without a trace. Alexander's life since then had become a solitary quest. Despite hiring the best investigators and deploying state-of-the-art technology, no clues had emerged. Over time, he began taking matters into his own hands. On countless nights, he would slip away from his mansion, evading his security team to wander the streets. He searched for any sign, any flicker of hope that Liam might still be out there. Nearby, a group of young men loitered near a cafe, their laughter cutting through the crisp evening air. At first, they paid no attention to Alexander, who stood silently by the shop window. The festive crowd moved around them, oblivious to the group's jeering glances. Their focus shifted when they noticed the old man's stillness, his eyes fixed on the music box inside. "Look at that old guy," one of them said, smirking as he nudged his friend. "What's he doing? Trying to relive his childhood or something? Or maybe he's just lost his marbles." Another chimed in, laughing. He crouched down dramatically, pretending to search the ground. "Careful, don't trip over your memories, Grandpa." The rest of the group burst into laughter, their voices carrying over the chatter of passers-by. One of the young men, dressed in a bright red scarf, exaggerated a hobble, mimicking an elderly man leaning on an imaginary cane. His friends roared with approval, their laughter now drawing the attention of nearby shoppers. Alexander remained unmoved, his gaze locked on the music box. To the group, his silence was fuel for their antics. "What's wrong, old-timer?" one called out mockingly. "Too poor to afford the fancy little box." Another added with a sneer, "You should ask Santa for some cash this year." The group inched closer, emboldened by each other's cheers. One of them stepped forward, standing directly in Alexander's line of sight. "Hey, Grandpa," he said loudly, waving a hand in front of the old man's face. "You awake in there?" Still, Alexander didn't react. To him, their voices were mere static, drowned out by the melody in his mind and the memories it evoked. He clutched the photograph of Liam in his pocket, drawing strength from the image of his grandson's innocent smile. Growing frustrated by the lack of response, another young man grabbed a handful of snow and packed it into a tight ball. "Maybe this will get his attention," he said, aiming it at Alexander's feet. The snowball hit the ground with a soft thud, spraying cold powder onto Alexander's worn shoes. A passing woman frowned at the scene, shaking her head in disapproval, but she didn't intervene. "What a shame," she muttered under her breath. No respect for their elders. As their laughter escalated, one of the group members began recording the interaction on his phone. "Let's make this viral," he said with a grin. "Old man meets modern-day comedians. Guaranteed likes." The others cheered, egging him on to capture more footage. But their laughter faltered when a stranger, a middle-aged man carrying a heavy briefcase, stopped nearby. His sharp gaze swept over the group, and he cleared his throat loudly. "What do you think you're doing?" he asked, his voice stern. The group exchanged uneasy glances, their bravado slipping for a moment. "We're just having fun," one of them mumbled, attempting a weak smile. The man shook his head, his expression firm. "There's nothing fun about mocking someone who's done nothing to you. Grow up and show some respect." His words hung in the air, drawing a few murmurs of agreement from the crowd. The group shuffled uncomfortably, their energy deflating as Alexander finally turned his head, his calm, piercing gaze silencing them more effectively than any reprimand could. As the laughter grew louder, a hooded figure emerged from the shadows of a nearby alley. Dressed in a tattered coat and carrying a satchel, the figure approached Alexander with quiet purpose, stopping just a few feet away. Without a word, they slipped a folded piece of paper into Alexander's coat pocket and disappeared into the crowd. Alexander felt the weight of the note and turned slightly, but the figure was gone. He pulled up the paper and unfolded it, revealing a single sentence written in a shaky hand. "The melody will lead you to him." His heart quickened as he reread the note. Could this be a sign? He clutched the paper tightly, his mind racing with questions. Who had left it? How did they know about Liam? And what did the music box have to do with it? Moments later, a sleek black SUV pulled up to the curb, and several imposing figures emerged. The jeering young men froze as the bodyguards approached, their movements purposeful and intimidating. "Mr. Gray," one of them said, his voice filled with relief. "We've been looking everywhere for you." Alexander turned slowly, his gaze calm but weary. "I wasn't lost," he replied softly. The young men exchanged nervous glances, the weight of their actions beginning to sink in. One of them whispered, "Did he just say, Mr. Gray? As in Gray Enterprises?" Their question was answered when one of the bodyguards turned to them, his expression cold and unforgiving. "Do you have any idea who you've been mocking?" he asked. "That man is Alexander Gray, the founder of the company you work for." The color drained from their faces. They stammered apologies, but Alexander waved them off with a dismissive hand. "You should be careful how you treat others," he said, his voice firm but measured. "The world is smaller than you think." Back at his estate, Alexander sat in his study, staring at the note, while the music box played softly on his desk. The melody filled the room with a bittersweet warmth, and for the first time in months, he felt a glimmer of hope. The next morning, Alexander called for Michael, his head of security. "I need you to investigate something for me," he said, handing over the note. "And find out everything you can about the music box in the shop window." Michael hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "I'll get on it right away." As the hours passed, Alexander grew restless. He found himself drawn to the music box, winding it up repeatedly and letting its melody wash over him. Each time, he felt a strange sense of familiarity, as if the music was speaking to him. By evening, Michael returned with a report. "Sir, the music box is a custom piece created by a local artisan. And the note, it matches the handwriting of someone who worked on Liam's case 2 years ago, a retired detective named Harold." Armed with this information, Alexander arranged a meeting with Harold. They met at a small diner on the outskirts of the city. Harold was a grizzled man with tired eyes, but his expression softened when he saw Alexander. "I've been waiting for you to find that note," Harold said. "I couldn't come forward directly, but I've been following leads on Liam's case." Alexander leaned forward, his voice urgent. "What did you find?" Harold pulled out a map and pointed to a remote cabin in the woods. "I think he's there. I couldn't confirm it, but I've heard whispers about a child matching Liam's description." Without hesitation, Alexander instructed Michael to prepare a helicopter. By dawn, they were flying over the snow-covered forests, the music box tucked securely in Alexander's coat. When they arrived at the cabin, Alexander's heart pounded with anticipation. He stepped out into the snow, clutching the music box. As he approached the door, He wound up, letting the melody fill the air. A moment later, the door creaked open, and a small boy with familiar features peeked out. His eyes widened as he saw Alexander and the music box. "Grandpa?" Liam whispered, his voice trembling. Alexander dropped to his knees, tears streaming down his face. "Liam, I've found you." They embraced tightly, the music box's melody playing softly in the background. For the first time in 2 years, Alexander felt whole again. Back at the estate, Alexander sat by the fireplace with Liam in his lap, recounting stories of their time apart. The music box sat on the mantel, a symbol of the hope that had guided him through his darkest days. Though the journey had been long and fraught with challenges, Alexander knew that he would never stop fighting for those he loved. And as the snow continued to fall outside, he smiled, knowing that this Christmas would be one of joy and reunion.